Hello and welcome to today's webinar on ESTCP funding opportunities. My name is Stephanie Lawless and I will be moderating today's session. We will get started in a few moments. While we wait for others to log on, I would like to cover a few logistical items. Today's broadcast will be listen only. We will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. You may submit questions by using the chat box on the left-hand portion of the screen. You do not need to wait until the Q&A period to submit your questions. In fact, we encourage you to submit them in advance of that session. The phone lines will remain listen only throughout the presentation, so we will not be taking any questions verbally. We will not be able to answer questions about specific proposal ideas or technologies during this webinar. Please note that both the audio and the presentation of today's session will be archived on our solicitation webpage in case you would like to refer to them in the future. Today's speakers are Dr. Herb Nelson, the Director of ESTCP, Dr. Andrea Leeson, the Deputy Director of ESTCP, and Mr. Tim Tatro, the ESTCP Energy and Water Program Manager. Before I turn it over to Herb, Andrea, and Tim, I would like to remind phone participants that this is a listen-only session, and to submit questions, please use the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Herb?
Thank you, Stephanie, and welcome to everyone to the this year's version of the ESTCP funding webinar. So just a few introductory remarks about who we are before we get into the meat of the issue here. So remind those that don't know and remind those that have known in the past that we are really two companion programs. The one on the left is SERDIP, the Strategic Environmental Research and Development Program, and that's a science and technology program. The solicitation for this year for that program is already closed. And then the program listed on the right of your slide is the Environmental Security Technology Certification Program. This is, in the words of the Department of Defense, a demonstration and validation program, and that is the subject of today's discussion. So the program is broken up into 5 program area management program areas, and you will see as you look at the topics that we are soliciting in, and as we talk about those throughout the course of the briefing, that you'll see this come up again. They are sort of from the upper left: weapon systems and platforms, energy and water, environmental restoration, munitions response, and finally resource conservation and resiliency. ESTCP and SERDIP, in fact, have really 2 sets of drivers that lead us to the choices of the topics that we solicit for and drive all of our work. The first of these is sustainability of ranges, facilities, and operations of the Department of Defense. Things from as varied as threat and endangered species management, noise on our bases, the impact of changing environment, dust emissions in bases in the Southwest, things like that. The second one of these drivers is to reduce the current and future liability associated with past and present practices. So on the left, the department has a large liability for groundwater cleanup, UXO liability. We're finding more emerging contaminants almost daily, it seems like, but certainly every few years. And on the right, we talk about pollution prevention measures to stop making the problems that we're cleaning up on the left. So ESTCP program, as I said before, is a demonstration and validation program. And to the Department of Defense, that means that we want to demonstrate innovative and cost-effective environmental and installation energy technologies. These should be past the point of research. That's why it's a demonstration and validation program. This is a means to transition these technologies out of the lab into a real-world site. And as part of that, we, of course, want to do the second big bullet, which is promote implementation. So we need to insert the technologies into a DoD installation, gain regulatory acceptance when that's appropriate. So we place a priority on the needs of the DoD user community, and as you'll see the topics discussed later in this presentation, you'll see that illustrated. So you can see on the top, which is just really a recap of what I said on the last slide, what are the desired technologies? These are technologies that have been proven out at the lab scale, maybe in the backyard scale, and are ready now to go to a full-scale demonstration on a DoD installation. We need to do this demonstration to properly account for what the real cost of the technology are and really document the benefit. And then we can use information from that demonstration to either accelerate commercialization or broader adoption throughout the DoD. And the caveat is the last big bullet: mature commercial technologies that you can order up right now are really not appropriate for demonstration and validation. These are for technologies that are in between laboratory work and commercialization. So the methodology is pretty straightforward. We want to always partner with stakeholders. We want to do these tests at DoD facilities so we can gather real-world, DoD real-world information. We want to validate the cost and performance. These projects all end in what we call a cost and performance report, where we document the actual cost savings achievable and the performance gains, or at least achieve the performance of the current technology. And then we want to help identify DoD market opportunities to do tech transfer. So even though this is one step in the DoD RDT&E process past research and development, we still want to do a rigorous job of these projects. So we require formal demonstration plans. We want to set out in advance what we're going to measure, what data must be collected to make that measurement, and how we're going to decide on success or not success at the end of the project, so that if it's not a success, which some projects are not, it's not because, well, we didn't really know what we were doing. It's because we gathered data to show that the technology is not appropriate. Then the second step, of course, is to execute the technology demonstration, collecting all the data that we said we would in the demonstration plan. And finally, we, of course, have written reports, and I spoke earlier, a technical report, which is the final report from the project, and the so-called cost and performance report, which I've already described. And then in most cases, we ask the PI to take activities that will support the transition to help end-user acceptance, as I say there, maybe regulators that is appropriate. Sometimes a guidance and training document would be the appropriate end of a project. That's a project-specific thing. So here's a diagram of the ESTCP solicitation process, So there is a Department of Defense call, there's a broad agency announcement, and there's a call for federal organizations outside DoD. Details of those will all be discussed in about 5 or 6 slides when Andrea and Tim talk. All 3 of those calls, the first step is a pre-proposal. This is a 5-page short description of the idea and outlining the rough cost. And we use this to decide if projects are, as you'll see in a few minutes, we use this to decide if projects are going down the right line before we get into the full proposal, trying to minimize the work on the prospective PIs. After a pre-proposal, those that are acceptable request a full proposal. Those full proposals then go to an oral briefing, although you see the little note, not for topic B9, which will be discussed by Tim in a minute, and then selections are made. So here are the dates for the solicitations. The solicitation was released a week or so ago on January the 9th. Pre-proposals are due on March the 8th. Notice that it's 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We are very firm on that deadline, so please don't call us at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and beg. Full proposals will be requested sometime in June of 2018, with the full proposals due 6 or so weeks after that. Briefings for before the technical committees would be in September, project selection in October, and then depending on whether it's a contract or money, a DoD place that money can just be sent, we would start the projects in spring, maybe late winter, maybe early summer of 2019. For one topic, which Tim will talk about in a lot more detail in about 10 slides now, is this topic B9 or D7. This has a much more compressed schedule, and Tim will explain to you why that is. Pre-proposals still doing the same time, but the whole rest of the schedule is very compressed. And on this modeling part of this project, phase 1, he'll describe to you, we expect project initiation to start in August for our DoD and federal people, and in October of 2018 for those responding to the BAA call. So these now, the next several slides are describing the call for proposals for DoD and then for the BAA. All of them are demonstration projects. All of them must address DoD environmental requirements. All of them require pre-proposal, and then the selection steps for full proposal and oral presentation, except as Tim will tell you on this topic, D7. The broad agency announcement and the call for proposals for federal organizations. The main difference on this slide is that the call in specific topic areas, the first big bullet, are somewhat narrower than the DoD call. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. They start with a short written pre-proposal. If there's a full proposal requested, we go on to the selection with a full proposal and oral presentation. The third big bullet, identifying DoD liaisons. This is for a case of a technology developer who has a technology that's appropriate for DoD, but it's not really savvy in the DoD installations and needs some help picking out site selection, or needs some help knowing who to get in touch with for the technology transition part of the project. And in that case, and for those that need that, we identify a DoD liaison to help you navigate the acronyms of DoD. So the selection criteria I alluded to a little bit earlier are the same for all projects. There are two pass-fail gates. Is this relevant, meaning does it respond to topics that are in the calls that will be discussed in a little bit? And the second one is this a technology that's appropriate for demonstration? I explained that earlier, but I'll say it one more time. These are projects and technologies that are past the laboratory scale, probably past the demonstration in the backyard, but are not yet to commercialization. So we're looking for that intermediate level where we need to do a real demonstration and collect real cost data to move on to commercialization or wide adoption. After you pass any project that passes those two gates, then we move on to selections based on technical merit, which is the most important, cost-benefit ratio, transition potential, total cost, and small business participation for those responding to the BAA. So we are off at ask, and we answer pretty much the same every time. What are the hallmarks of a competitive proposal? And I think everything on this slide should flow exactly from what I said before. Step number one, which is one of the gates, does the technology proposed clearly address a topic area? Does the proposal have well-defined demonstration questions? Meaning, is there something that we're going to find out, we can write down in advance, what questions we're going to ask and what answers we need to get to make a decision? Does the technology provide a significant benefit? And that can be either through reduced cost or improved performance, or in the best cases, both. And obviously, is the proposal and the proposed technology a technically sound technology? So now I'm going to hand the briefing over to my colleague Andrea Leeson, who is going to talk to you through some of the topics.
Okay, thanks, Herb. As Herb said, I'm going to go through the areas of interest we've released this year. We have topics that were released for the private sector, and as well as different topics released for the DoD. For federal organizations that are not the DoD, the topic areas that I'll talk about that are described for the private sector are essentially the same. First, I'll talk about the BAA topics, and then we'll go into the DoD topics. And then for each topic area, there is a specific program manager who's responsible for that area of interest, and they'll be listed at the bottom where you can contact them if you have additional questions about it. We are going to answer questions at the end of this webinar, but if you have something more detailed that you need to talk to the other program manager about, you can do that after the fact. So the first broad agency topic area that we have is the innovative technology transfer approaches. Now, this particular topic area is open also to anyone submitting under any program area, and we have also to encourage those who would submit who are DoD-led that you can take a look at this topic area and also submit under the DoD area for innovative technology transfer approaches. And what we're looking for here is that we want investigators to propose a technology transfer approach for either a technology that has been successfully demonstrated under ESTCP, or for mature bodies of knowledge that have come out of CERTIP and are appropriate for direct transfer. You do not necessarily have to have been the lead investigator for an ESTCP project to propose under this, but certainly should be quite familiar with what's been done under our program areas. And we've released this because technology transfer is very important to the program areas. We don't if we have invested in a technology, unless it transfers into the appropriate community of interest, the money has not been well spent. And so this topic area is an effort to encourage more innovative technology transfer approaches. And what we're looking for in the proposals is that you need to let us know why the particular technology you're proposing is appropriate for this. What have been the barriers to adoption of the technology? Who are the key stakeholders that would be interested in this technology? What are their information needs? And why the proposed approach is appropriate to the technology and the audience. We prefer that proposals comprehensively address all of the stakeholders, and often different methods are good for different types of stakeholders, whether they're the research community, regulators, military RPMs, etc. So we want you to consider that in your proposal. Proposals also, they may focus on a very broad array of investment areas. For example, a particular platform could be proposed that would be applicable to almost any project that comes out of any of the program areas, or they can be narrowly defined and be very specific for transferring a specific technology out to the stakeholders. And again, I want to emphasize that this topic area is open under our BAA and the non-DoD federal performers, but also we encourage the DoD performers to consider this topic area and also submit under it. Next topic area is long-term management of contaminated aquatic sediments. And while we have this up here, I did want to make a note that there is a workshop report link at the bottom of the page, and I believe that will be copied over to there it is. It's in the chat room if you want to look at that workshop report. Roughly every year or so, we have strategic workshops where we pull together a bunch of experts in the field, and we basically brainstorm for 2 days about here's what we don't know still and what's holding us back in fully understanding a particular area. And then we publish a report that summarizes all the data needs that were identified, and then that informs the future solicitations we release, which is the case here. A couple of years back, we had a strategic workshop on issues associated with managing contaminated aquatic sediments, and so if you do choose to propose to this topic area, please take a look at that report. It'll give you a lot of information. In summary, though, what we're looking at is better ways to help us manage these sites. Most of our sites deal with contamination from PAHs, PCBs, heavy metals, and a mixture of those. We're also dealing with some emerging contaminants in our contaminated sediments, such as the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. So all of that is open, and we have some specific bullet points to take a look at there of items of interest to us. We are interested in any of the contaminated marine, estuarine, brackish, or freshwater sediments. The only issue we don't address in our program is radionuclides. The next topic area is dealing with management of contaminated groundwater. For those of you familiar with the program, you know that we have been looking at issues associated with contaminated groundwater for quite a while. But please take a close look at the areas of interest we have now. What we've really focused on now are our most difficult to treat sites, and that generally is due to either the hydrogeology of the site or the contaminant concentration. And you'll see again at the bottom of this topic area, as well as over to the left in the chat room, a link to a recent workshop report that dealt specifically with the emerging contaminants, the PFASs. Really encourage you to take a look at that workshop report if you're interested in submitting to this topic area. The issue of PFASs and contaminated groundwater is one of great interest to us now, and there's more detail in that workshop report about some of the demonstration needs that we have in this area. The next topic area is detection, classification, and remediation of military munitions in the underwater environments. And very specifically, we're interested in 3 different areas here. which is the wide area and or detailed survey techniques, cost-effective recovery and disposal methods, and management of the underwater munitions sites. These technologies that are proposed could be for a wide variety of the aquatic environments, and munitions range from small projectiles up to mortars or large bombs. Typically, we are interested in water depths of less than 5 meters, but up to 35 meters. The next topic area we have is for DoD installation infrastructure risk exposure and resilience decision support tools. And what we're interested in here is looking at proposed projects that can propose decision tools for quantifying the risk and resilience at sites, as well as decision support that's focused on non-coastal extrinsic environmental risk to installation and infrastructure. Sea level rise risk analysis can also be included in these proposals, but they should not be the principal focus of anything that's submitted. And the demonstration of the risk management tools can quantify risk from exposures possessing the potential to impact near, mid, or long-term infrastructure missions. And then the next topic area is the demonstration validation of fluorine-free aqueous film-forming foam. This is following on to some of the work we have proposed under CERTIP in the past, and now, we'd like to see if we're ready to demonstrate some of these technologies. There are several specific sub-bullets that are listed there that the materials and processes must meet. For example, it already must be developed to at least a technology readiness level of 4. So it's very important that you look at these sub-bullets to make sure that your technology is ready for demonstration and validation under this topic area. At this point, then, we're going to switch to some of the energy and water topic areas, and I'm going to turn it over to our program manager under this area, Tim Tatro, to discuss those in more detail.
Thank you, Andrea. So the first of the 3 energy and water topics that we have for this year is very similar to the one issued last year. It's energy efficiency technology demonstrations integrated with utility energy services contracts. The one minor difference between the topic this year from last year is the addition of a highlighted technology of interest, which includes micro-combined heat and power technologies. So the objective with these demonstrations is focusing on technologies that are more towards the early commercialized, pre-commercialized technologies that are ready for the broad deployment, but need additional demonstration with partnership with a integrator through a utility energy services contract, so utility or their representative energy services company. So they are a key partner in the demonstration, although it's not required that a utility or their rep be the principal investigator, but ultimately for a successful demonstration, they would need to be a partner at some point. The demonstrations of these technologies are, like I said, focused mostly on the later stage. The kind of unproven technologies are probably not ready to be included in the UESC, although that would be for the particular utility or their ESCO to determine. So that's up to them whether they're comfortable with demonstrating an earlier stage technology. So the second topic is effective use of utility facility data to improve the management, operation, and maintenance of facilities. So this topic, we're looking for demonstrations of solutions to improve the use, access, and quality of utility and facility-related data for the purposes of informing better decisions in energy investments, to assist the facility and energy managers in their day-to-day operations and operating and maintaining our facilities. We've listed here a list of characteristics, I guess, that are preferred for these technologies. These are not, we're not expecting that a technology include all of these characteristics. It's important, though, that a technology at least has one or more of these characteristics. One thing to note is, I think of special interest is we're looking for ways or solutions that can integrate data from different data sources or disparate databases to create higher value and actionable information to inform decisions, like I said, or to operate and maintain our facilities. Also to note, we recommend partnering or collaborating with DoD components for the purposes of gaining better access to the existing systems for which these solutions will likely integrate. And our last topic under energy water is large-scale energy storage and microgrids. This topic, these projects will be conducted in 2 phases. As Herb mentioned earlier, this first phase is going to be a design and modeling phase at a pretty accelerated schedule. So as with all the other proposals pre-proposals we'll do in March, but the intent is that we will have the project actually completed, the modeling done in time for coordinating next year's solicitation with the results of with these projects, so that selections can be made for those projects that we choose to go on to phase 2, which would be the field testing of a selection of these modeled solutions. And with that, I will hand that back over to Andrea to go through the DoD call.
Great, thank you. All right, so now we'll walk through the DoD topic areas. So with the DoD topic areas, what this means is that the lead on the proposal must be from a DoD entity. They can have other co-performers on there that are not from the DoD, but the lead investigator must be from the DoD. The first topic area is under environmental restoration, and you'll see 6 topic areas here. And we have 3 different workshop reports that I think are relevant and would be good to reference, and those will eventually make their way over onto the left there so that you can click them. Just a note too, this webinar is archived, so you'll be able to get to all of this information online also if it's gone by too quick for you. So first we're looking at monitoring to look at technologies for assessment or long-term monitoring of chemical contamination or biogeochemical indicators in soil, sediments, and waters. And you'll see there that we mentioned sediments, and we also mentioned sediments in reduction in the cost to complete. So I'd like to refer you to the workshop report we have on contaminated sediments. That will have some good information in there. Second topic there is reduction in the cost to complete, and that is cost to complete as defined by the DoD. We have certain guidelines and our goals that we're working towards in the short term, and so we are looking for technologies that will help reduce that cost associated with cleaning up contaminated groundwater or aquatic sediments. I'd also like to, at this point, reference you to the PFAS workshop report. You'll see that on the left, and that will also have some, again, good information there about some of the data needs we have for demonstrations for PFASs. We also have reduced source loading of munitions constituents. This is primarily an issue on our testing and training ranges, and that is the 3rd workshop report. You'll see linked there. That workshop report's a little bit older, but still has some relevant information in there about data needs and data gaps associated with our testing and training ranges. Then finally, we're also looking for technologies for stormwater treatment, wastewater treatment, and I just made a note here that we're also looking for the innovative technology transfer approaches. And you can refer back to the more detailed information there under the topic area about what's of interest to us there. The second DoD topic area is under the munitions response in underwater environments. Everything here is covered under the more detailed description under the BAA topic area. So you can reference back to that topic area for more information. The next DoD topic area is on that resource conservation and resiliency, and here they're primarily interested in two areas under this program area. That's natural resources, specifically looking at technologies for the sustainable management of resources, natural resources, dealing with ecological systems, living marine resources ecology and management, as well as species ecology and management. And then also of particular interest there is tools, technologies, methodologies for wildland fire management. And then also noted at the bottom here is the innovative technology transfer approaches again, and as I said, that is discussed more under the BAA topic area. Under weapons systems and platforms, we have 4 areas of interest under manufacturing and maintenance, energetics, waste reduction, specifically on ships and forward operating bases, and lead-free electronics. And then the last topic area there mentioned is, again, the technology transfer. And then the last topic area is, again, dealing with energy and water. All of the topic areas under the DoD are the same as for what's listed under the BAA. So you should look back at the BAA for more detailed description of what is of interest for this program area. And I'm sorry, that there's one note we wanted to make also with the energy and water, that technology transfer is also of interest here. But I believe when you submit it, you have to pick a program area when you submit it. So EW is not an option, I believe, to submit under technology transfer. So we're asking people to select the weapons system and platform program area if you're interested in submitting a proposal on technology transfer that's applicable to EW. So at this point, what we're going to do is go into our question and answer period, and I just wanted to make a note too that we'll get to as many questions as we can. If you have a question that's really detailed and perhaps very specific about a topic area, we may not get to it, but please make sure to contact the program manager who's listed under the topic area, and they can get back to you separately. But at this time, we will answer what we can.
Thank you, Andrea. We have had a number of questions, and as Andrea just stated, we'll answer as many questions as time permits, focusing on those that are generally applicable to all submitters or logistical in nature, and we will not be able to answer questions about specific proposal ideas or technologies during this webinar, but please contact the program managers. And our first question is, does a demonstration site need to be identified in the pre-proposal?
And the answer to that question is no. If you know the demonstration site that is most appropriate, it's okay to identify in the pre-proposal. If you don't, the thing to do is write down the characteristics of an ideal demonstration site. And that is the case where a DoD liaison may come into play and help you find a place to have the demonstration.
For topic D5, energy efficiency technology demonstrations integrated with utility energy services contracts, does a UESC have to be in development prior to a pre-proposal or proposal being submitted, or can one be developed subsequent to submission?
No, UESCs do not need to be developed or in development prior to the pre-proposal, and we, I guess, understand the challenges associated with coordinating the timing of a ESTCP demonstration in the UESC, so we expect that throughout the selection process, PIs will be continuing to look for possible UESCs that would be amenable to a demonstration.
For topic B1, innovative technology transfer approaches, does the applicant have to be a PI of a past or current CERTIP or ESTCP project?
No, that is not required. You should certainly be aware of what was done under CERTIP or ESTCP that's relevant to the technology transfer approach that you're proposing, but it's not required that you're a PI, a former PI. How does DoD deal with intellectual property?
DoD and ESTCP in particular, which is what we're talking about here, deals with intellectual property just in the way that it's handled in all of the federal acquisition regulations. If a company or a firm or a person may bring intellectual property to the table, and then that is theirs alone, and then things that are developed with ESTCP funding or jointly, we have joint rights with the developer and the government.
For topic B8, effective use of utility and facility data to improve the management, operation, and maintenance of facilities, are there any requirements on cybersecurity for the demonstrating software?
To conduct a demonstration on the production network, if that's what the plan is, you would be subject to getting a authority to operate or an interim authority to test. So you'd have to follow those requirements in the risk management framework.
Are military bases allowed to be participants?
You're definitely allowed to be a participant. Now, if the person is a lead who's employed on a military base, then you should submit under the DoD call, or personnel from military bases can be listed as co-performers if someone from the private sector is going to be the lead. In that case, the proposal should come in under the BAA topic areas.
What is the total funding available?
So as part of answering that question, I'm going to answer several of the funding questions that are on the board up here. So the ESTCP's annual budget is something like $50 or $55 million a year. In general, projects are about 3 years in duration, so that leaves new starts of something like a third of that. So $17 or $18 million, that's not a hard number, but that's what that's the average is. That's split among the 5 program areas, so you can figure that out however you want to figure it out. As I said earlier, the average project in this answer, the average project is something like 3 years. Projects, though, range widely in scale, from relatively small demonstrations of a single easy technology that are a couple $100,000 a year, up to large underwater detailed survey projects that could see $3 million over the course of the project. So we would urge you not to try to hit a target for funding, but to write down a series of demonstration questions, as we talked about earlier, that you need to do, price them fairly, and then submit them.
For the UESC topic, does a utility company need to be a partner in order to submit, or will one be assigned later?
So no, there's a few UESC topic questions here, so I'll answer those. A utility company or their representative ESCO does not need to be a partner in order to submit. However, that is a requirement in order to execute the project that the demonstration include a utility, and the intent is that it's incorporated into a UESC. So you do not have to be a partner, but eventually, if you are awarded, it would be, the intent is that you will have identified or have some network done prior to the award to indicate that you have a plan to partner with the utility, maybe one identified or done some outreach. Another question for UESC is, what is meant by cost sharing? So the intent here is that the UESC would be conducted like a typical one, which is a financed project. So maybe the bulk of the cost of a UESC would be financed through the typical approach, and a portion of the cost would be covered through the ESTCP project, and that's to be determined and part of the proposal that is presented to us for consideration. And another question, is there a list available of UESCs under contract or in plan of military installations? No, there is not. Those that information, I believe, exists somewhere, but it is not publicly available.
Will the slides be posted somewhere for future reference?
Everything is archived and will be available on our website after this webinar.
How does one demonstrate environmentally benign materials? Is this calling for an experiment or a data survey / synthesis?
Well, I would say both. It's calling for a synthesis of the benign materials and then application and use on either test coupons or an actual military weapon system. So in that way, we could gather the data of how much does it cost, or at least reasonably project the data of how much would it cost to produce these materials, and do they have performance that's equal to or better than the currently used materials.
For the energy storage topic, is there a definition for large scale?
I guess the definition we would use here is based on how the storage technology would be integrated with the microgrid. So there's not a capacity definition here. It's simply that it would be integrated with a microgrid, something appropriate for that application. There's another question for energy storage topic. Can you explain more on requirements for partnering with DoD? We will be, in this particular topic, providing all the information necessary to conduct phase 1. So there is no requirement to conduct any outreach to an installation for data. We will be providing that to you. If you are successfully selected to go into field demonstration, that coordination with the DoD installation will be facilitated through our program.
For groundwater treatment, what flow rate would be considered backyard scale?
Well, I'm assuming here then that someone's talking about an ex situ treatment process. Typically what we've seen is that when we're developing these processes, we start out at the lab scale at maybe less than 5 GPM, and then once you go up into the pilot scale, we want to see that substantially increase to at least tens of GPM, if not higher. So that gives you a rough idea of what we would consider.
Can a small business apply for the solicitation?
Absolutely. In fact, we encourage small businesses to apply and routinely fund them. Once the pre-proposals are in, there's really no differentiation between DoD applicants, small and large businesses, universities, or other federal.
Do companies have to be based in the United States?
We do not have any limitation on being based in the U.S., so companies outside of the U.S. can apply.
Is the Energy and Water Program part of CERTIF as well?
No, it is not. Energy and Water is just an ESTCP program area.
What is the expected length of performance for each project?
There is really no expected length. Different technologies take longer to put in place, get permitting, get set up to do the demonstration. But I said at least once in that sentence, demonstration, that's what we want to focus on. This is a demonstration validation program. So people should be planning to be in the field relatively quickly after project award. We're not doing science to develop a technology, we're demonstrating it. So some will be in the field, the demonstration lasts a year and a half, and then the reports are written. Others will take much longer to get set up, and they could go as many as 3 or 4 years. So it will depend on the technology.
Where can we find program manager contact information for the various areas?
Go to the topic areas, and at the very bottom of every topic area there will be a specific point of contact for that topic area. Make sure you're looking at the topic area of interest because all of them are assigned to a particular program manager, so you'll want to make sure you have the correct program manager when you're looking at that.
Is it an option to conduct a demonstration on a non-DoD site?
In general, it is not an option. Under ESTCP, we want the demonstrations to be conducted on DoD sites. In some cases where there's no real infrastructure being installed, for example, sometimes a project really just involves taking samples, and as long as those samples, as long as they're relevant to DoD issues, we have some flexibility there. But when there's a significant infrastructure that's going to be installed, then yes, it does have to be on a DoD site or a site where the DoD has a significant part of the responsibility for cleaning up the site.
What is the process for proposal evaluations, and who participates in the evaluation process?
Yeah, so I'm sorry if we didn't cover that during the session. So ESTCP, each program area has a so-called ESTCP technical committee for that program area. And that committee is made up of representatives from the services, sometimes people from EPA, a few times people from DOE. They really flow from the sort of technical committees. And so these are people that are supposed to be in touch with the needs of the services, and also they have a second role after technologies are selected and demonstrated. They help bring the results back to the services. So those are the proposal evaluation panel. There is a source selection plan, though. The director is the source selection authority, but the recommendations are made by the ESTCP technical committee.
If the lead PI is a non-DoD employee, but the primary POC and facilitator is DoD, should the proposal be submitted to the DoD call or BAA?
Well, we would consider the lead PI to be the primary point of contact. So the lead PI, if they're a non-DoD employee, then that proposal should come in under the BAA. And then the facilitator, if the facilitator is from the DoD, we consider them a co-performer. And again, where the proposal is submitted depends on who the lead PI is, and we consider the lead PI to be the primary POC.
Will the project selected for Phase 2 of the energy storage topic be selected from the awardees of Phase 1, or will it be another open competition?
Yes, only those projects that have been conducted in Phase 1 will be included in consideration for Phase 2.
Is collaboration with a non-domestic entity allowed as a subawardee to the U.S. prime?
The answer to that is yes, but I'm going to answer that more broadly because there's a question up here, can non-U.S. firms be the prime, the PI? And the answer to both of those is yes. We have supported firms and universities from Canada, from Europe, and from Australia, so that's not rare for us.
What is your definition of wastewater? Black water?
Actually, we are interested in both gray and black water, so the proposals we would accept, that we have a broad range of what's of interest.
For the energy storage topic, are Phase 1 efforts structured similarly to the typical ESTCP proposals, including experimental design?
No, Phase 1 is going to be kind of conducted differently. There are instructions in the, there's instructions for submittal specific to this topic that go through kind of how, what we expect in terms of the pre-proposal and then also in the full proposal.
Can a state agency apply?
Yes, we don't have a limitation on that, and that would be, they should apply under the BAA or non-DoD federal topics.
What % of pre-proposals are typically awarded?
So there's really no typical to give to that. Some of the program areas get hundreds of pre-proposals, so the fraction is relatively low. Some get only a couple of dozen pre-proposals, so the fraction is somewhat higher. Here's the number that I like to keep in mind. When we ask for full proposals, our general rule is to only ask for full proposals corresponding to twice as much as we can fund, so that when you go to the full proposal stage and have to spin up to write the big proposal, many people at a firm, particularly small business, have to be involved. The chances then are substantial, meaning approximately 1 out of 2.
For the energy storage topic, what is included in the requirement for detailed modeling?
So in this case, detailed modeling, we're considering at a minimum the ability to model 15-minute interval data or higher resolution, and then also perform the necessary economic analysis that includes basically the metric of 20-year life cycle cost, including all the potential revenue streams, I guess, and costs and savings generated compared to the baseline model.
Can a program manager give guidance as to whether a particular technology is suitable for a BAA topic area?
No, we don't do that. The purpose of getting a pre-proposal is that those are relatively short. They're 5 pages, and the idea is that we can get an idea of what you're proposing and whether it's suitable for the program area. It's really not appropriate for us to have any offline discussions with people. So if you ask those questions, they won't be answered. You'll need to read the topic area carefully and then submit the pre-proposal.
Can the technology demonstrated within these projects be eventually used in commercial applications, or is it intended only to be used for military or defense applications?
Yes, absolutely. We encourage so-called dual-use technologies. We are obviously interested in developing technologies that respond to DoD environmental needs, but these are shared by a lot of non-DoD uses, and we would encourage the application in a wider scale.
For topic B9, energy storage, will commercially available technology not yet deployed at a DoD site still be considered too mature for consideration?
No, that would be an appropriate level of maturity for demonstration. There's another question related to this one, I think, that's asking something similar, but even if it's commercially available, the fact that it has not yet been deployed on military installation is one of the purposes we're conducting the demonstration, to inform DoD community about the application within microgrids on military installations.
How does one go about partnering with DoD components?
At the pre-proposal stage, we don't really expect people from the private sector to be partnered with a DoD installation. We realize that you may not have those comments or contacts, and that's fine. What we would do is that if you come in at the pre-proposal stage and we think your idea is of interest, we will at that point assign a DoD liaison to you who would assist you with getting a short list of sites that may be applicable to your technology. If you need some data to further develop your idea for a full proposal, they can help you with that. But we do work with you to partner you with a liaison with the DoD so that you can get more information on sites more easily.
Are pre-proposals made public?
No, they are not. The only people that read pre-proposals are the program managers and a selected fraction of the technical committees who are federal employees and have signed conflict of interest agreements.
If a DoD employee develops the technology on their own, would a proposal be submitted under the DoD or BAA call?
Well, I was reading this first and I had one answer, and then I'm looking at it a little more carefully. I'm wondering if that means, are you trying to submit as a private entity, as like, Mr. Smith LLC or something? If that's the case, if you're submitting like for your own private company, then you would submit under the BAA. But if you're submitting as, I work for the DoD, then it must come under the DoD call.
Is past performance a requirement?
No, that is not a requirement. We have oftentimes, new to the program proposals, and we do not consider past performance as in our criteria.
Can multiple proposals be submitted by the same organization?
They can. We do not have a limit on number of pre-proposals that can be submitted by an organization or even by an individual. I mean, you probably do want to keep in mind, though, that if you're selected for full proposals, can you theoretically handle that if you get multiple full proposal requests? Because, keep in mind it's a relatively short time frame between when we ask for full proposals and when you have to get that turned in, as well as develop a presentation to present the idea.
Can proposals submitted in previous years but not funded be submitted again this year?
Yes, with the requirement that they must respond to a topic that has been published this year. So if the topic hasn't changed, and if you think that it was close but just didn't make it, then it probably makes sense to try to resubmit. But if obviously don't try to stretch last year's proposal to fit this year's topic. I'll remind you that gate number 1 is relevant, so keep that in mind.
How are funds provided to non-federal partners on DoD-led proposals?
If the DoD has led the proposal, we will intend to send all project funds to that entity, and then they will be responsible for subcontracting the funds to non-federal partners.
Can a non-DoD organization participate on a proposal responding to the DoD call for proposals?
As long as the proposal is led by someone from the DoD, you can have as a co-performer anyone you want from any organization. So it doesn't mean that everyone who's performing on the proposal has to be from the DoD. You can have different subcontractors with you. You can have other federal agencies as a co-performer. The limitation is only on the lead investigator.
Does a company need to have a product ready prior to submitting a pre-proposal, or can a technology be in the prototype phase?
I think that depends on the questioner's understanding of prototype. I would use different words. I think that things that come out of Budget Activity 3 or 6.3 in the DoD funding scheme would be at the brass board level, meaning ready to go with maybe a short period of time to tweak algorithms or harden up a system to go to the field. So if a prototype fits those topics, if it fits those, characteristics, then I think it's okay. If you think of a prototype, though, as a barely able to work in the lab, then I think no.
Is there a typical length for ESTCP demonstrations?
There really isn't. I think just one thing to keep in mind is we are strict on the demonstration plan. That goes under a thorough review in almost all cases. A second version of that demonstration plan is required. We have guidance for how to prepare that document. And then at the end of the project, we have specific documents that are required, both a final report and a cost and performance report. You can find those on our website too. So you need to build in time for the proper preparation and review of those documents. So having said that, while there is no defined time in general, we find most of our projects are roughly about 3 years once you put in the time for the demonstration itself, as well as the required deliverables.
Are the installations selected at this point? And if so, is that list available?
So the installations are not selected, and the idea is that the technologies should have application to any or all installations, depending on their circumstances or installed equipment. So we do not require that you have an installation identified in your pre-proposal, and will help or assist in identifying a host site if you do make it on to the full proposal phase and beyond.
Do proposals submitted with a DoD lead have an advantage over proposals submitted as BAA?
They really don't. You should really consider what makes the most sense technically and from a management standpoint as far as who's going to lead that proposal. As I said before, the lead PI we consider the primary point of contact. So, really have the person who makes the most sense leading the project be the person who's leading the proposal.
Could you please expand on what the DoD sees as environmental infrastructure under the Risk Exposure Resilience Call?
I would use natural infrastructure as a synonym to environmental infrastructure, meaning the DoD ranges, training lands, possible set-aside areas the DoD is managing for munitions for threatened and endangered species. I'm sorry, I tripped over that. Threatened and endangered species reasons. The coastline, maybe the interaction with the piers at a Navy installation. Those are the kind of things that are the environmental infrastructure.
Will feedback be provided on pre-proposals that are not selected?
We do not provide feedback on pre-proposals, and that's really just a labor hour issue. We're a pretty small organization. We tend to get a lot of pre-proposals, and we just don't have the staff to really be able to handle comments back on all pre-proposals, unfortunately.
For the energy storage topic, can a technology that received early-stage ESTCP funding qualify in this current call if it has still not achieved widespread commercial or DoD adoption?
Yes, any technology, whether it's received previous ESTCP funding or not, that meets that kind of description or requirement of not being widely deployed or on its own is eligible for funding.
Are U.S.-based public universities appropriate proposal leads under the BAA?
Yes, certainly. From a university, you want to be prepared to be able to demonstrate the technology. And it depends on the program area, but certainly in environmental restoration, which is my program area, that means being able to get out into the field. As long as you can, handle all aspects of the project, then there's no reason why public university couldn't lead the proposal under the BAA.
Could you please comment on submitting essentially the same proposal under two topics such as energy efficiency and storage?
So we recommend or ask that you submit only one. If it's the same actual proposal, submit only under one topic. It saves us labor. Ultimately, it would be figured out, identified, and only considered under one topic anyway. So just select the one that you think is most applicable to and go with that.
Does the use of an existing technology for a novel new application of same technology to an ESTCP priority target constitute violation of the need to have a technology in the backyard or small-scale application status?
Well, to start out, I'm going to regret the rest of my life that I used the word backyard, but this question. But I think, in general, the answer to this question is yes, meaning that there's a technology, it's commercially available, it's used routinely, but we don't know enough to know whether it's cost-effective and applicable for a completely different use or a completely different purpose. And then I think that is an appropriate use of an ESTCP demonstration.
Are the experimental aspects in the storage topic only in Phase 2?
Yes, that is accurate. The Phase 1 will just be modeling, result in a final report and a proposal for demonstration or field test.
For the energy storage topic, do all the storage components, including cells, need to be non-commercial?
No, that's not the case. I mean, like we talked about before, they can be commercially available. It's just that the intent is that the technology does not have broad deployment within DoD at this point.
This is the last more general question that we have received. There are other questions which are more specific to a topic area or technology. For those questions, we ask that you contact the program manager for that specific topic. Thank you for attending the webinar today. As a reminder, the presentation and audio will be archived for future reference on the ESTCP solicitation webpage. This concludes today's webcast. Thank you.